Hello again and welcome back to another spooky sculpting video. For this October I thought I'd do some more spookier sculptures and this is the first one. I made Barbara and Adam's masks from Beetlejuice. This isn't the first time I've made something from Beetlejuice before. Before I even started my channel I made one of the little small head guys for a Halloween party and I thought I'd revisit Beetlejuice. So this is how I'm gonna do it. In all honesty, I'm no cosplayer, I don't really know how to do these kinds of things, but how I kind of started off was I got a piece of string and kind of wrapped it around my head to see how it would fit, and then I started to make the head. I do later on go in and change the string to elastic, but the string does actually still work. It's just elastic works just a little bit better for me. So to construct the head, I start off with just some foil and masking tape. To make that face, I'll show you kind of how I did it later on Adam's mask. I just kind of crunched some foil into my face. Definitely didn't hurt. And then I attach that kind of big mouthpiece and add more foil to the rest of the face. On the inside of the mask, I do actually add some masking tape as it holds it together a bit better. It's not as floppy and it also helps when you're wearing it and the foil won't be scratching on your face as much. So to add the string I did use some masking tape, and like I said I did change it out later, like right at the end, just before I even put it on for kind of the end segment of the video. But yeah, in all honesty, you can use string. I'd suggest using 2 pieces of string, one that can attach at the top and bottom of your head, you know. Just that is a bit better. I don't know, I'm no cosplayer. Then I use some foam clay. Now, I don't mind foam clay. In all honesty, I used to think that this brand that I used was horrible and so difficult to use, but halfway through this video I ran out of it and had to buy a different brand and realised that this is actually really good foam clay compared to the other stuff. Ugh. I'll get onto that later, honestly. But yeah, I just add some foam clay all over. If you've seen my other videos, you know just how long it takes to use polymer clay, but with foam clay, it really just smushes all over, blends quite nicely, especially this brand, like I said. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. You just use water, and it's an air-dry type of clay, so it dries about after 24 to 48 hours-ish. It's quite fun to use, really. It's kind of a bit like slime, but less strange. I don't know. After the main body has dried, I add some more clay and then I start to texture the inside of the mouth using a bit of water on my tool and just kind of going in and adding those ridges. I mean, I don't really know how defined ridges are in your mouth, but I mean, if you kind of feel around with your tongue, I guess. It's a bit of a strange thing to say, but you know, there are some ridges inside your mouth, so I try to kind of replicate that, as well as using the references. But the references were very difficult to see. They were all quite dark and kind of trying to see all the detail on them was very difficult. So I did kind of just wing it for the most part and just kind of went off of how I thought it would look. And it's not perfect. In the end, this does not turn out really, it only resembles the face. It's not perfect at all. It's far from it. But yeah, really, I'm going to be wearing this once, so I'm not going to spend, you know, weeks working on it to make it look absolutely perfect. I do make the teeth similar to how I did the ridges on the mouth. I just go in with that spiked tool and with some water and define the teeth. I go all the way around on the top layer. The bottom layer was where it gets a bit difficult because I ran out of that initial good foam clay. But to make the teeth, I use my ball tool and then add little ridges in the sides, trying to make it look like teeth. I mean, again, the reference wasn't the best. You know, I couldn't really see the teeth, but I mean, yeah. This was when it got difficult because I had to switch out for a different brand of clay. Now you might see off to the side there is some foam clay sitting in water. I wouldn't dare do that with the other brand because it would just expand and go to absolute mush, but this one was so stiff. Look, I'm placing it down and then I try to blend it out and I have to use my fingernails to try and scrape it and it just doesn't work. It was very temperamental and just difficult and I regret just not buying the big bag, but it was like £30 and I'm not spending that much on some foam clay for a couple of masks. I wish I did though, really wish I did. Most of the detail actually gets lost because for some reason this new brand of foam clay decides to expand when it dries. So all of this detail I'm putting in now goes to waste. It's really, really annoying. It just completely disappears. Now, stupidly, I add some foil to the outside of the foam clay. You know, really, really horrible bad idea. I don't know what was going through my mind. You know, I even tried to fix it, and then I went away for the weekend, came back, and this is what I saw. Difficult, right? The whole thing had just kind of fallen apart, and I didn't know what to do, so I just kind of took it off, added some more clay, and tried to fix it. It wasn't really working too well, and as well, the front of the face also got completely broken, and I had to maul it apart and try and fix it as best as I could. But, you know, again, like I said, I'm no cosplayer. It's not going to be perfect. Then to make the tongue, I, you know, used some foil, made it into a sort of triangular shape, and then I added some foil, foam clay, not foil, to the base of it. Placed it kind of face down where the foam was, and then added more foam on top once it was in, you know, like that. Again, this foam clay just expands. It went to mush. Really annoying. But I have some tools that will help me define it a bit better later on, so I don't really have to worry about that too much. After I had, you know, added lots and lots of clay to the whole tongue, making it kind of bulky, but remembering that I can just shave as much off as I want later on, I also add some extra to the end of the tongue because it was a little bit stubby. You want a nice long tongue. It's a really weird thing to say, I don't know why I said that. Then to make the eyeballs, I had a ring of foil. Now in the centre of that is where I'm going to carve it out later so that I can actually see. I say that, and yet, you know, this mask had like minimum visibility. I could barely see a thing, but you know, it's kind of funny. I don't really mind. And of course, you know, you see them, they melted. They are no longer eyeballs, they are mushy balls. Oh. Anyways, if you don't have this tool, which is a Dremel, which I use to actually go in and carve those sort of wrinkles and stretch marks on the face, you can just use a knife. It works. If anything, better than the Dremel. My one kept like flinging about and felt a little bit dangerous. I'm not the best at using it, but yeah, you can just use a knife. It works pretty much the same. It looks a little bit more choppy, but you can just go in if you have sandpaper and smoothen that out as well. So, you know, it's not too bad. I also use it to define the eyeballs as well because they were circles. They were, yeah, and then they kind of just melted as they dried. Not great. I also add a bit more definition to the tongue by adding the small ridge in the middle and kind of carving it out, and then also adding little details to the tongue, because you know how tongues are kind of rough. You know, that's what I did here. I went in with this sort of sandpaper attachment and just rubbed it all over. Made it kind of look like a tongue. Again, I also went in using it to shape out the eyeballs a bit better. Again, I know you probably can't, I mean, if you have a Dremel, great! If you don't, knives are useful, they will help you. You know, you can't just use them and they should work for the most part. I did carve out the centre of the eyeballs, but that doesn't really matter. Then onto the second mask, Adam's mask. So again, I smushed the foil into my face. I'll kind of show you how I did it here. So with it on my face attached with the string, I went in and tried to attach it to my face, but I don't know what was wrong with me. I was not being my smartest, so I added the foil, smushed it in. Then for some reason decided to add some foil not connected to anything, and then used masking tape and let go to see if it would stay, and obviously it didn't. It kind of, you know, fell off. Not very smart of me, is it? Well, of course, because it didn't stay on, I just tried to fix it while it wasn't on my face, which is a bit easier. So I used a lot of foil for the very long nose that Adam has, and I didn't realise at the time, but there are also like little fingers at the top of his head. I thought they were just like weird skin spikes, but they're actually, I think, like fingers, like, because his fingers are changed into like eyeballs. which I'll actually do later. So of course you know the drill, I just go in and add the foil all over the face, trying not to add it too thick as it gets quite mushy and has a desire to fall off very easily and just kind of, like you saw earlier when the foil was attached to the wrong place and then it all fell off. You know what can happen, so don't make the same mistake as me. Use as much foil as possible and then use the foam clay kind of thin on top of that. You still want it to be decently thick, but you know, not so thick that it weighs itself down and pulls itself off. I go in and again, just more and more foam clay, trying to bulk it out in the right places like the mouth. I use it and kind of take some away and also smush it into the kind of weird corners of the mouth. I don't know. His face looks very strange. I think Barbara's one is quite cool. This one's just a little bit weird. It's kind of, I don't know, it's very unsettling. The other one's just kind of not scary, but just funny in a way. But yeah, this one's this was a little bit weird. So I keep adding more foam clay, and remember how I said earlier, this one isn't very good at holding details. So I try my best to, you know, do a little bit of detail, but in the end, it doesn't really work. So I have to wait until after it's dried and then add more foam clay on top. This is when I kind of tried to do the fingers at the end of his head. I wasn't very smart about it as I added just straight wire into the back of the head, and the clay was too mushy because I added too much water, so after time they kind of just ended up falling over into each other, so I had to remake them, and you'll see me doing that later. So this is what happened. You see how much the foil expanded? Just everywhere. All of the detail I just did got lost, so I had to go and, after it had dried, with my Dremel and pretty much redo all the details, but just instead of, you know, mushing around the clay, I actually had to take some away so that, of course, it was the right thickness in all places. At about this point, my Dremel decided that it was gonna stop working as well, so that's great. Specifically the sandpaper attachment. So I did use this sort of grinder quite often, but you know, when I went into that sandpaper, it just wasn't working. It just kept flinging off. Not very fun. I also had to extend the nose a little bit because I think it was just a little bit too, oops, just a little bit too short. Sorry about that, just whacked you. Anyways, I go in and, you know, add some more clay in places where it had expanded too much, like around the eyes. I needed that to kind of be caved in a little bit so that I can go in and paint it black later, like how you see on the face. And I just added little bits of clay in areas where I just wanted a bit more definition and detail when I knew that it wouldn't expand way too much. Just a little bit. Also, the less water I added, the more, the less that it would expand. However, if I didn't add water at all, it wouldn't have stuck, it wouldn't have stretched, it would do that annoying thing when you stretch it and you want it to be like very stretchy and you want it to go very far, but then it just kind of snaps. And of course, like I said, the fingers at the end of the head just kind of smushed, so I had to redo them with a bit of thicker clay. Also, sorry, I kind of forgot to show how I did the nose. I just kind of, similar to how I did the eyes, just adding a ring of clay around it and then smushing it out. I really did try my hardest to get in all of the wrinkles kind of around the face, kind of where the skin has been, of course, stretched out. It wasn't blending too nicely, so like I did on Barbara earlier, I went in with my Dremel after it had all dried just to smoothen it out. But yeah, it does look a little bit rough right now, sorry about that. There are quite a lot of wrinkles. And also, Adam's mask itself isn't very, you know, it's not as fun as Barbara's. However, Adam has an extra part to his costume, which are the little eyeballs. So I make those by smushing some clay into my fingers. Then I move on to painting. Just a quick warning, it does get quite fast here. There are lots of kind of flashing colours, I guess, so just beware of that. I paint the inside of the mouth, that sort of reddish colour, you know, skin fleshy colour. And of course also the gums. They aren't lips, they're actually gums, I believe, which is a little bit strange. Also the tongue is also a slightly lighter colour. And after I've painted that, I go in and dry brush, which is just having a little bit of paint on your brush, not too much, and running it over the details to kind of bring in the lighter colours. I do it for the tongue also, and this is where that texture I did earlier with the Dremel really starts to shine. I really like it. It's quite nice, and I also made it a bit more red. For the eyes as well, I start off with a light pink and then blend it out with some white in the centre to make them look quite bloodshot. I also add little veins on them as well, just by adding some red paint. I add quite a lot, just because I really want them to look quite, you know, icky. You know, I don't know. But I also add some black into the centre of the eyes so that they don't look so strange. But of course it has to have the pupil. I was quite torn at this point whether to do this kind of same skin colour as Barbara or my skin colour. Honestly, it's very similar. However, I am absurdly pale, so I was just wondering if I should do that. But I kind of go in between. It's not perfect. It's not the same, the exact same shade, but yeah, I do start off with the darker colour on top and then go over with a lighter colour so that it kind of that darker colour seeps into all of those cracks and scratch marks all over the face. For the base colour of the teeth, I do this kind of yellowish kind of beige colour to make them look a bit dirty, and then I do dim my camera so that you can see what I'm doing. I go in with white to bring out those, you know, edges of the teeth. And of course the centre of the eyes are black as well. And then on the inside of the mouth, for the finishing touch, I go in with some nice gloss all over it to make it look nice and disgustingly wet. And then I start to paint Adam's mask using the same kind of technique, starting off with a much darker colour, putting that pretty much all over where I need it to be, and then going in, once that's dried, with a lighter colour which kind of matches skin tone a bit better. But then I do use, while that's drying, I do the eyeballs, similar to how I did Barbara's, going over with pink and then white. I tried to dim the camera, it didn't really work too well, but you get the gist. You saw it earlier on Barbara's face. The skin colour is pretty much the same as Barbara's, quite light, and then I keep it darker in all those other areas so that it kind of looks like shadows. And then with this blackish red colour I go in with the mouth, and then black on the eyes, trying to get it all into those little cracks, and then I just kind of mix the general skin colour with a tiny bit of pink to make the lip colour. And of course the same beige-ish colour with white on top for the teeth. To paint the eyeballs, I only show you one, but I go in at the bottom with this kind of, you know, again similar to how I did with Barbara, red, and then the veins all over it. And right at the bottom I use sort of a black colour to make it really dark, and then, you know, the blue for the coloured part of the eye, I can't remember what it's called, and then the black I forgot to show because I forgot to do it on the camera, and then the highlight, and then the gloss on top. And yeah, that's pretty much all finished. Wow. I really don't know how you put up with my rambling sometimes. I really do applaud you if you stuck through to the end of the video though, because I just keep talking on and on and on. I did have an absolute blast making this, despite how tedious it was and how messy it came out in the end. But just let me know what you think, and also let me know what kind of thing you want to see this spooky season, as I'd like to know what kind of thing you guys want to see. If you did enjoy, I'd really appreciate it if you could like the video, and if you want to see more in the future, of course, you can also subscribe. I'm going to try get to my regular upload schedule a bit more, because I'm sorry about recently, it's been all over the place. But I'll see you next time. Bye bye!